Hello and welcome to the last episode of this series, The Probe, which is my series for campus journalism. In this video, we're going to talk about the laws and ethics of the press, and then we're going to jump to the legal foundations of campus journalism in the Philippines. So let's dive into it. In this video, we're going to talk about a lot of things. But particularly, yung mga objectives natin are the following. So, first is we need to know the PSSPA Code of Ethics. You also have to be able to know the Professional Code of Ethics. And then the laws that limit the freedom of the press, and you have to know the provisions of the implementing rules and regulation for RA 7079. Campus journalists, this is going to guide you in writing your news. As writers, as beginning writers, and being minors as well in the society, we are training you on how it is going to be in the real field. Ang inyong school paper advisor, aside from the technical advice na binibigay niya sa inyo, binibigyan niya rin kayo ng mga contrived experiences, mga experiences na naka-scale down na para lang dun sa mga nasa level ninyo within the campus. And sometimes, as writers, we tend to go beyond the limits of what we're supposed to talk about, right? Sometimes we tend to go beyond the points that we are supposed to make. And sometimes we make mistakes, and those mistakes are some things that are not just going to affect us, because in matters of laws and ethics, the guiding principles, the rules and regulation in campus journalism, your advisor, the supervisor who is supervising campus journalism in your division, the school head, yung principal ninyo sa school ninyo, as well as the school's division superintendent ng inyong division office, they're liable. Okay, but you don't have to worry so much. The worst case that can happen to a paper na merong pinublish na na mali, okay, misleading, ganun. The worst thing that can happen to that paper's advisor, the school head of the school being represented by that paper, the supervisor for campus journalism in that division where that paper is being published under, as well as the school's division superintendent for that particular division. They will just be called, yung attention nila i-call lang naman, and then they are going to be encouraged lang to supervise the paper even better. So, yun. Nevertheless, syempre, we don't want to commit these kinds of mistakes. And the reason why I'm telling you this right now, it's for you to feel the need to know about these kinds of laws, these kinds of rules and regulation that are governing campus journalism. Okay? Ayan. So, let's now dive into the first points of this discussion. You may hear something in the background. Siguro may maririnig kang parang nagbe-video, okay, no? Pero I hope that your ability to focus into the video and what I am telling you is going to keep you on track, okay? Hopefully wala namang magkumanta ng My Way dyan or mag-away dyan sa video, okay? Ayan, hindi pa natin napapagawa ng soundproofing itong room. So, hopefully that's gonna happen soon. Let's dive into this. The introduction to the laws and ethics of the press. We have to keep in mind that the campus paper should observe accuracy. Dapat yung mga nire-report natin ay saktong-sakto lang sa kung ano yung mga nangyayari. Fairness, dapat patas tayo sa pagre-report. May mga facts on one side, may mga facts din naman on the other. We have to put them together. Okay, wala tayo dapat kinikilingan. Ayan. And good taste. dapat alam natin yung mga yung mga pwedeng i-report at saka yung mga, oo, totoo nga, oo, patas nga, pero baka it's not something that the public should know at the moment. Parang meron pang kailangang hintayin na information regarding that particular news. Ang mga stories na ating mga pinapublish in the campus paper, kailangan hindi chismis, no? They're not based on rumors, hindi rin dapat based sa gossips or to an unattributed opinion. May mga campus paper na ginagawa nilang parang ginagawa nila ng source ng story, yung mga parang mga anonymous letters about specific people or specific teachers. Ayan, o kaya siguro mga Supreme Student Government Officers, yung mga estudyante, kapwa nyo estudyante na kilala talaga sa school, perhaps mga varsity stars, ginagawan sila ng mga chismis. We don't report things like that, okay? We don't report things like that. Obscenity as well, kailangan yung unnecessary, actually even basic na pagmumura. We don't do that in our broadsheets, in our magazines, and in our newsletters. Though meron akong mga na-experience na when I was in the college paper, so in the university paper, though I was around 17 to 18 years old when I started, and then 19 to 20 years old ako nung nag-graduate ako. I experienced reading literary folios being published by colleges and universities na merong mga mura. Okay, although I think in our student publication hindi namin ginagawa 'yon, or kung may nangyari man, it's not really a mura, it's just an expression of anger. Ayun. Although I'm not sure kasi I can't really recall a single story in our literary folio that did that put obscenity in it. O kaya kalaswaan, okay? Pagmumura at kalaswaan. Wala naman gaanong mga napapublish na ganoon. I think yung mga uri ng mga artworks, by saying artworks, mga literary works, I mean, na merong mga kalaswaan na tema, they are not published in university and campus papers, or they're not published by student publications. They are published by a standalone publication. Ayan. Obscenity in campus journalism is not tolerated. Okay, let's always remember that. Also, we are not tolerating the use of words that are showing bias concerning race, ayan. Alam niyo na yung mga terms na yun, religion or class. Okay, we don't use those words in campus journalism. We avoid using them. Yung mga stories naman that are concerning a particular person, okay, and the person's moral, we don't tolerate them. Innocent persons must not be involved in questionable or unpleasant incidents or exposed to public ridicule. Hindi pwedeng gamitin ang campus paper para i-expose sa kapwa ninyo estudyante, sa student body, ang isang katulad ninyong estudyante. Okay? Again, yung chismis, iniiwasan natin yon. Yung mga obscenities, ayan, iniiwasan natin yon. Even yung paninira mismo ng isang kasama ninyo, mga kapwa nyo estudyante, tapos gagawin nyo, ipapublish nyo yung mga alam ninyo, kaya yung mga chismis na narinig ninyo tungkol sa kanya, that's not good. And we don't do that in campus journalism. Okay? Campus papers must avoid featuring photos offending general readers' sensibility. Tulad na lang halimbawa ng mga litrato ng mga patay o yung mga pinatay through murder. Ayan. That emphasizes brutality. Well, yes, may mga photos na ganon. I think hindi lang sa campus paper, kundi maging na rin sa mga commercial talaga ng mga paper, yung mga pinapublish talaga, yung mga nagsisirculate ng mga newspapers, they don't also publish yung mga mangled bodies, yan, mga broken limbs, na mga accident scenes. Sometimes they blur them, they blur them through broadcasts, and ako parang wala pa naman ako nakita sa newspaper na na pinakita yung murder weapon is a bolo or a machete. Tapos basta. We don't show those photos in campus papers. Also, sex crimes are not the territory of the campus paper. Yung panggagahasa, halimbawa, pangmomolest ayan, na o kaya sabihin natin nangyari na nga siya sa mismong campus. We don't say them. We don't publish them in the campus paper. Okay? Okay. Even though it was confirmed, even though it was meron talagang nangyaring ganon at nagkaroon ng disciplinary action, we don't do that. We don't publish them in the campus paper. Okay. The next part of this discussion is the following. So, in case a high school campus paper reporter breaches the ethics or laws on journalism, the school paper advisor, so yung advisor ng school paper in English o kaya in Filipino, principal or school head, yung division journalism supervisor, at saka yung school's division superintendent. So silang apat, 1, 2, 3, 4. Silang apat ang mga accountable. Again, yung kanilang accountability, it only extends as far as this, not really a punishment, pero they will just be asked to exercise more diligent supervision over the campus paper and its staff to avoid the same kind of mistake in the future. Kailangan hindi na siya makommit in the future. Why is that so? Bakit natin ginagawa to? Well, napakadaling sagutin ng tanong na yun, di ba? Bakit natin kinocall yung attention nung advisor, principal, supervisor, at superintendent ng isang campus paper na nag-publish ng isang erroneous na article? Bakit natin sila kinokola ng attention? It's because yung laws na pinoprotektahan yung right ng isang individual sa kanyang puri, sa kanyang honor, okay? It's very important. It's indispensable. It's very important. Ngayon, kung halimbawa, hindi na rin naman siya buhay, halimbawa sinabing nagkaroon tayo ng character sketch sa isang campus paper, kinuwento ang buhay ni ganito na napatay na or wala na, yumao na yun. Tapos, meron silang nilagay na something in that article that destroys the reputation or questions the reputation of that particular person who's already dead. Meron pa rin karapatan ang yumao na yun at yung mga mahal niya sa buhay over that kind of memory na iniwan niya. Okay, so we can't destroy that through campus journalism. We have to avoid doing that. The campus paper though, it has to be ready. Kailangan prepared tayo. Kailangan ready tayo na i-prove, na patunayan. I don't know, I'm moving my microphone. Na kailangan mapatunayan natin yung truthfulness ng isang question report. Kailangan you have to know how to defend the truthfulness of your report kung yun ang gagawin mo. And you also have to be able to defend the absence of malice dun sa report mo. Okay, if you want to refute these kinds of parang imputations, no, not really. These kinds of reports, if you want to dispute them, you have to be ready again to prove the truthfulness of a particular report and also to prove the absence of malice. Okay? Kasi baka totoo nga, kaso parang mamali siya naman yung report mo. We have to avoid that. Okay. We now proceed to the next part of this video lesson. Okay, so okay na tong microphone. Okay, so the Philippine Secondary Schools Press Association, or the PSSPA, Code of Ethics. According to Elena Q. Tanodra's book, Principles of Campus Journalism, ang PSSPA ay isang pambansang organization. Okay. Kaso, I have been a school paper advisor for Angeles City. At ang meron lang kami is yung aming Association of School Paper Advisors dito sa Angeles City. Wala talaga kaming parang nire-recognize or nare-recognize na PSSPA. As far as I know, no. Although we know na lahat ng mga SPAs are part of the National Schools Press Conference, hindi ako sure kung meron pa rin na ganito. Okay? Also, I have to let you know that Elena Q. Tanodra's book is really old. I just think that the content are really good, or most of the content napakaganda, and I wanted to preserve the book by creating these kinds of video lessons. But a lot of things changed already, and some of the contents in the book are no longer applicable, and I'm feeling like this is one of them. Nevertheless, para sa inyo na mga campus journalists, maybe it's still good to talk about the following code of ethics. The PSSPA had a national conference last 1948, so tagal na to, no? At Torres High School, which I am assuming is Florentino Torres High School in Manila. They adopted the Code of Ethics, and it's actually, it's a really good, these are good statements. Okay, so the first one, campus paper staffers, ikaw, na campus journalist, you have to make sure that you are cooperating at all times with the faculty in the improvement and betterment of the school, and to give only constructive criticism in regard to any school undertaking. Ang work mo bilang isang campus journalist is to be a partner of the faculty, of the administrators, in making the school a better place. So, kung ang lahat ng ginawa mo, ninyo na editorial board and staff sa inyong nire-release na broadsheet ay puro pang-uuyam, puro na lang pagka-criticize, negative criticism, like puro na lang reklamo, puro na lang complaints ang nakikita natin dun sa paper na pinapublish ninyo, you're not offering anything that the faculty and the administrator can use to better their service. You're just complaining. Okay? Your paper, like, take my word for it, okay? It deserves the trash bin. It deserves the bin. Constructive criticism is when you provide the faculty as well as the administration your points. If it's a complaint, then make it. Okay, complain. But after complaining, you have to make sure that you provide the faculty and the administration something to work on. Okay? Offer some suggestions, some alternatives. Paano ba mapapabetter ng administration ng mga faculty ang inyong disaster resilience? Paano nila mapapaganda pa yung services nila, yung health services na na-offer sa campus? Paano magkakaroon ng mas magandang instruction ng inyong mga teachers? Hindi yung puro na lang tayo reklamo. You have to also let them know what you are looking for. You have to do constructive criticism when you are publishing in the paper, the campus paper. Okay, that's the first one. The next one is you have to reflect good sportsmanship in writing by disregarding personal grudge and enmity. Hindi ibig sabihin na ikaw ang EIC, ikaw na talaga masusunod, at ang lahat ng mga nambubuli sa'yo sa school, pariringgan mo na lahat sila, okay, gagamitin mo ang campus paper para makaganti sa kanila, no? We don't do that in campus journalism. Next, you have to avoid ironic personal jokes. Bakit if magbabarkada kayo ng mga editorial board and staff? Okay, so Ikaw na EIC, kabarkada mo yung associate, tas super friend mo yung feature editor. Anong gagawin sa feature section? Are you going to put all of your personal barkada jokes in there? Yung mga parang mga blind item, bina-blind item nyo ba? Yung mga ayaw ninyo na mga schoolmates ninyo? No? No, you don't do that in the campus paper. What if like tinatawag nyong parang mystery name yung isang kasama ninyo, yung kabatchmate ninyo, meron siyang parang mystery name sa inyo. Baka sabihin na natin yung kabatchmate ninyo, meron siyang malaking mga teeth, front teeth, tapos tinatawag niyo siyang Bugs Bunny. And then in the newsletter, in the feature section, you're gonna make a blind item or you're gonna use Bugs Bunny as a character. And then the characteristics of Bugs Bunny as used in your feature article is really relatable para dun sa pinag-uusapan ninyong magbabarkada. That's not good. Okay, you don't do that in the campus paper. Next is to exclude from the publication articles about the school that may draw wrong and unpleasant conclusions from those unaware of the real situation. Mayroong mga school issues na hindi na dapat pang pinapublish dun sa publication mismo. Say for instance, and a trigger warning if, say, one of the students took his or her or their life while being enrolled in the school, and then you're gonna make, say, a column, you're gonna write a column about suicide, and you're gonna cite that student. That may not be something of good taste. And even though you get the permission from the family, the grieving family, no. My suggestion is you don't publish that article. It may draw wrong and unpleasant assumptions regarding the school, so you don't do that. Okay. Next, to extend full credit to the author of any borrowed article. If there are articles that your editorial board borrowed, you have to credit them fully and effectively. Next, to be accurate and truthful in newspaper reporting. So that's quite given. And to correct errors brought to the attention of the staff. Alam ko, medyo nakakatamad. Balikan yung mga pinublish natin, no? Pero, if you're gonna think about it, if you wrote the article and you edited it, and then sabihin na natin ikaw na yung EIC, so wala nang ibang mag-edit nun, or hindi mo na pina-edit sa iba because you're very confident about your work already. And then it turns out that the reader saw something wrong about the article pa. You have to make sure that you address those requests for revisions or those requests for correction. Okay? You have to make sure that you maintain the trust of your readers. And what better way is there kapag merong na-raise na mga ganitong klaseng concerns than to let them know that you are going to correct whatever is erroneous in your paper. Okay, so you also have to strive hard for the best way of expression. The best way of expression, the most effective way of expressing your ideas, the most effective way, the most comprehensive way of relaying these information, of letting the public know, of letting the student body know about these situations. That's what you do. Okay? You also have to practice teamwork and you have to discard individualism. I know that some editorial board and staff have their parang mga best writers, best artists, and best photojournalists. But in the paper, dapat hindi lumilitaw yung ganun. Parang lahat na lang ng nasa literary page, kay ganito na lang, siya na lang lahat yung nagbigay ng article sa literary page. No. We always have to provide some variety. We also have to make sure that each section, okay, is a collaborative work of many members in, maybe not all of them, pero many members of the editorial board and staff. Lalo na kung marami kayong mga writers, hindi pwede na yung feature section, puro na lang si ganitong writer o kaya silang dalawa na lang ang mga nag-publish. At hindi rin pwede na kung merong 50 na mga poems, okay, 50 poems sa literary folio na ipapublish ninyo, halos 40. Dalawang tao lang yung nagsulat. Hindi pwedeng ganun. Dahil na kung meron kayong mga 15 to 17 na mga writers in your editorial board, you don't allow that to happen. You have to make sure that you don't emphasize on individualism in your campus paper. You also have to adopt new ideas and make changes whenever such will mean progress and development. Sinabi ko kanina about the corrections, you have to make sure that you do them. And if, halimbawa, you have to integrate something fresh, okay? Some new concept, some new and fresh concept, you have to make sure that you talk about them as a staff, as a board, and you have to try them out, okay? Of course, your technical advisors are going to help you out. That ends our discussion for the Philippine Secondary Schools Peers Association or PSSPA. Yung Code of Ethics na yan is it was used by the PSSPA while they were still administering to the public secondary schools, and I think even private secondary schools in the Philippines. This one, anyway, is a very familiar. It's a very familiar creed. It's a very familiar article. It's not a story. It's an article, I think, for campus journalists and even actually mga professional journalists. It's the journalists' creed. Yeah, let's have a reminder on how does it go. Okay, so let's have a reminder on how the journalists' creed go. Again, so first, I believe in the profession of journalism. As a campus journalist, you have to make sure that your heart is true to journalism, that your heart for expression is pure, that your mind is kept open, kept critical and skeptic. You develop a nose for news, you develop a nose for facts, and you can distinguish fake news from truthful ones. Believe in the kind of journalism that is not bribed by anything, be it status or material things. Next one, I believe that the public journal is a public trust, that all concerned with it are to the full measure of their responsibility trustees for the public. The broadsheet that you are publishing in your school is intended for the reader. It's intended for the public. It's not intended for you. It's not for you. It's not for your technical advisors. It's not for the school head. It's for the public. If it's intended kasi for the school head, every single thing or most of the things that you will read in that particular broadsheet will be always about how your school head is managing the school. It's much like it's parang it's an anthology of your school head's accomplishments. No, that's not it. Okay? The campus paper is not like that. If it's intended naman to, if it's intended for you, like if you, campus journalist, are the editor-in-chief of your student publication, and then most of the decision making was done by you, and that you are also identifying what kind of articles are going to be accepted or published in the campus paper. And then it turns out that all of them include you, like, or parang they're all in favor of you. All articles must agree with you. No. Okay, it's not meant to serve your purpose. It's meant to serve the purpose of the public. They need to be informed. And the kind of information that must be given to them is the kind of information that must be given to them. Okay? Hindi yung the kind of information that you want to give them. Okay? It's a public trust. That all acceptance of lesser service than the public service is a betrayal of this trust. If the editorial board is going to receive favors from several students so that those students are going to be featured in the campus paper in a very good light, that's a betrayal of the trust of the public. If the school paper, if the campus paper is going to sugarcoat, to sweet lemon several problems that are existing in our society nowadays, or if they are going to campaign for a particular, say, candidate or politician, say the campus paper is or the school year is going to involve preparations for the elections, be it national or local. If the campus paper is going to include any article that is promoting a particular candidate, that is a betrayal of the trust of the public. Okay, so let's remember that. Next. I believe that clear thinking and clear statement, accuracy and fairness are fundamental to good journalism. Now, what is clear thinking? Clear thinking is being able to know and to say everything that must be said. Ayan, to know and say everything that must be said. And clear statement is saying them clearly, comprehensively, hindi yung ikaw lang nakakaintindi. Ayan. Accuracy, dapat sakto. Yung mismong information na nire-relay mo, yung mga words na ginamit mo, they're not too much, they're not too subtle naman. I mean, they're not too soft. Okay? And then fairness, kailangan, sinabi natin kanina, if there are facts supporting a particular thing and facts that are negating it, you have to present both of them. Okay? Now, if you're able to do all of these, clear thinking, if you can also write clear statements, you're accurate when you write, you're also fair, and that means you are on your way to good journalism. I believe that a journalist should write only what he holds in his heart to be true. Dapat, ikaw mismo na journalist, no, alam mo na totoo yung nire-report mo. Hindi yung alam mo na hindi totoo yung nire-report mo, sinusulat mo pa rin, like, ini-improve mo pa siya. Okay, you're even, like, doing something worse than just writing it. No, not like that. Okay, next. You have to believe that the suppression of the news, you believe, as a journalist, you believe that the suppression of the news for any consideration other than the welfare of society is indefensible. Sinabi na natin to kanina, actually. If you suppress the news, if you keep facts away from your readers, facts that they must know, and your consideration is other than that of the welfare of the society, hindi mo in-inform ang mga readers mo about something, at ang reason mo is not because sa kapakanan, para rin naman sa kapakanan nila yon. If your reasons other than that, say money, or any favor from anyone, that sin is indefensible. It cannot be made correct. You cannot correct that, and you cannot defend that. You can't argue your way to make that correct. Okay, to justify that. You can't do it like that. The only reason for you to suppress a particular information from the public is if it is for the welfare of the society. Okay? I believe that no one should write as a journalist what he would not say as a gentleman. That bribery by one's own pocketbook is as much as to be avoided as bribery by the pocketbook of another. That individual responsibility may not be escaped by pleading another's instructions or another's dividends. When you say something as a journalist, make sure that what you're saying is something that you can also say as a gentleman. So you have to make sure you're not obscene. You have to make sure you're not gossiping. You have to make sure you're not just spreading rumors, and you're not also ridiculing publicly anyone that you hate. Okay? You're not just making the public sympathize with you and your grudge against a particular person. For the next one, you have to believe that advertising, if you're a journalist, news and editorial columns should alike serve the interests of the readers. That a single standard of helpful truth and clearness should prevail for all. Editorial columns, it's the stand of the whole paper. A column is the stand of a particular person about a particular and specific topic. Now, in both instances, the writers of the column and the editorial must make sure that what they're writing about is not serving them personally. Like, sila lang ang makikinabang, sila lang ang mapapakinggan doon. Dapat, when they talk, napapakinggan yung mga tao, who they are representing. In this case, if you are a student of a particular high school, you have to make sure that when you write your column, when you write the editorial for the paper, you are representing the student body. Okay? This statement as well, I want you to take note of it. The supreme test of good journalism is the measure of its public service. If your school paper, whatever the name of your school paper, is capable of informing the student body of things that they must know, if your campus paper is capable of exposing things that must be given to the student body, if your campus paper is enabling the student body and helps the administration and the faculty to speed up development, to speed up its progress, to speed up the integration of new scientific breakthroughs and technological advances in the field of education, then we can say that your campus paper is of good taste and it's a representation of good journalism. The last one is quite long. Let's read it. I believe that the journalism which succeeds best and best deserves success, fears God and honors man. Now, when we say God in this creed, I want to emphasize, like, this is my personal take anyway on this. Pero, I think this take naman is quite universal in approach. We're not just meaning God of the Christian traditions, no? We don't just mean Jesus. We don't just mean the Holy Spirit or the Father or the one true God, not just Allah. Okay, so I think that when we say that good journalism or a successful journalism, the best kind of journalism, is something that fears God, whoever that God is, for a particular population of readers. Okay? If your readers are Muslims, then they must be, the God that is being mentioned here is the God of the Muslims. If your readers are Christians, then the God being mentioned here is the God of Christians, or based from Christian traditions. And then aside from it fears God, it has to honor man. This kind of journalism is also stoutly independent, unmoved by pride of opinion or greed of power, constructive, tolerant, but never careless, self-controlled, patient, always respectful of its readers, but always unafraid, is quickly indignant at injustice. Those next words, I think, it's much like a good journalist, a good campus journalist, is not being overwhelmed by his, her, or their heart, their emotions. Though they are mad, they are angry at injustices, They don't let their emotions consume them, that they will say things irresponsibly. A good journalist, a good campus journalist is always level-headed. Hindi nagdidilim yung kanyang mga thoughts over the kind of anger that their hearts are currently having. Okay? Keep that in mind. You are not detached from the society, you're part of it. But you are someone from the society who still thinks rightly, clearly, even though everything around you is starting to fall apart. Okay? Journalism, which succeeds best, is unswayed by the appeal of privilege or the clamor of the mob. I highlight it because I want to talk about this. The first one, which is about the appeal of privilege, is saying something like this: if you're a good journalist, favors, material favors, or any kind of favor is not going to make you write good things about anyone or bad things about against anyone. Okay? As a good journalist as well, you are not easily moved by the clamor of the mob, which means if the masses that you are currently in, yung grupo ng student body na kung saan ka nabibilang ngayon, they're having this kind of parang collective emotion, this kind of rage. You're not easily swayed by that. Okay, again, you have to be the level-headed member of that society so that whatever you say, you're just stating facts and you are just guiding the student body, the administration, and also the faculty about what the student paper, the campus paper thinks must be done. Journalism, which succeeds best, seeks to give every man a chance, and as far as law and honest wage and recognition of human brotherhood can make it so, an equal chance. It is profoundly patriotic, while sincerely promoting international goodwill and cementing world comradeship. It is a journalism of humanity and of and for today's world. Muntik na akong mag-stutter dun. Okay, so, it's a journalism of humanity, of, and for today's world. Ayan. So, that's a journalist's creed. I think that's the last statement in the journalist's creed. And it's always good to feel that this kind of creed is capable, has been guiding us, has been guiding different kinds of journalists, campus journalists and professional journalists all over the world. And it keeps on reminding us of what our purpose is in this society. I know that as journalists, we are also people capable of feeling intense emotions. Pero I think as well that to be able to write effectively, to be able to relay facts clearly and without any malice, we have to make sure that we are keeping a level mind. We can always use our emotions naman to appeal to the public. Okay, we can make them feel things as well. Pero we have to make sure we do that responsibly. And if you're going to do it, you always have to consider it's for the welfare of the society. You don't stir rage in the hearts of your readers to support a particular candidate lang or to support a particular cause that may not actually benefit everyone. Okay? Make sure that whenever you are stirring the emotion of your readers, you are doing it for them. You are just waking them up. Okay? Okay. For the next part of this video lesson, and I know that it's quite around 40 minutes na, pero I hope you're still with me. So if you want to, you may grab some drink because right now we're going to talk about the promulgating rules and regulations necessary for the effective implementation of RA 7079, otherwise known as the Campus Journalism Act of 1991. Okay. So this is the legal foundation of our program of campus journalism in the Philippines. Okay. And this one was this one was signed by into ano, I think we don't really say into law. Okay, it was signed by the former secretary of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, Arman V. Fabella. Ayan. So for the first article, pursuant to Section 9 of the Republic Act number 7079, otherwise known as the Campus Journalism Act of 1991, the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, in coordination with the officers of the national, elementary, secondary, and tertiary organizations of official advisors of student publications, together with student journalists and representatives of public and private schools managements, hereby promulgates the rules and regulations necessary for the effective implementation of the said act. A bit of a background. While I was reading this, I think that the DECS, the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports at that time, was managing the elementary, secondary, and tertiary levels. These days, the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports was renamed Department of Education. I am just not really sure, pero parang yung National Historical, no, parang National Cultural Commission, or maybe yeah, we may just search for it on the internet, because there is already a separate organization for culture and a separate organization for sports as well. Parang kumbaga, the Department of Education is just now the Department of Education, and it is in charge of elementary and secondary basic education. Okay, ano ba sinasabi natin dito? Ang sinasabi lang natin dito, by the time na na-approve si Republic Act number 7079, and by the time na na-release ang DECS Order 94 series of 1992, which is under pa rin siya sa DECS, under pa rin siya sa Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. Ngayon, it's already 2022, wala na itong si DECS, no? Pero meron siyang actually it was renamed into Department of Education. Hindi lang natin alam saan napunta yung culture at saka saan napunta yung sports. Parang nagka-separate na rin yata silang mga departments or mga commissions. Ayan. So that's what we are trying to say. But at that time, elementary, secondary, and tertiary organizations or school papers are called by this DECS Order. Ayan. So, for the next article, all concerned are directed to implement the enclosed rules and regulations for the implementation of RA 7079. Lahat ng mga lalabag sa mga provisions dito are going to be, penalized criminally, actually, yung sinabi niya dito, following the due process of law. So, medyo nakakatakot yata mag-violate dito. And so, let's read on with the third one. All of these rules must take effect immediately. So by the time it was signed in 1992, nag-take effect na po sila. And then the fourth one, widest and most immediate dissemination of this order, DECS Order 94, series of 1992, to both public and private schools at all levels into all editorial boards of campus paper was thereby directed. Ayan. So now let's read the rules. As an introduction for the rules and regulations, ang tawag dito ay yung Campus Journalism Act of 1991. That's how we are going to refer to the following rules and regulations. For the first rule, it's the rule for title. Again, ang tawag dito is the Campus Journalism Act, the implementation or the implementing rules and regulations for the Campus Journalism Act of 1991. But for the sake of this article, we're going to call that rules. So instead of the whole implementation rules and regulations for Campus Journalism Act of 1991, ang tawag natin doon, rules. For the second rule, state policy, Section 1, Declaration of Policy. The policy of the state is to uphold and protect the freedom of the press, even at the campus level, and to promote the development and growth of campus journalism as a means of strengthening ethical values, encouraging critical and creative thinking, and developing moral character and personal discipline of the Filipino youth. In furtherance of this policy, the state shall undertake various programs and projects aimed at improving the journalistic skills of students concerned and promoting responsible and free journalism. Ang sinasabi lang naman dito is based on our constitution, we are going to promote and we're going to protect the freedom of expression in the country, and that's the major rationale behind this. Kaya natin ito, ginawa ito dati sa DECS. Inumpisahan siya ng DECS dati. It's because they want to be true to that kind of promise that is enshrined even in our constitution. For Section 1 continued, it is therefore the duty of all officials ng Department of Education, Culture and Sports, school, college, university heads, campus paper teacher advisors, and personnel involved in the campus journalism program in the elementary, secondary, and tertiary levels of education to support and promote the campus journalism program policies and objectives as provided for in Republic Act No. 7079 and existing laws embodied as principles in the Constitution. So, i-review lang natin, let's be reminded that by the time this was signed, lahat ng involved ay ang mga elementary, secondary, at mga tertiary level na mga schools. So, involved pati colleges, at saka universities. For the next one, rule number 3, definition of terms. The school is an institution for learning, elementary, secondary, and tertiary level, composed of students, administration, faculty, and non-faculty personnel. Ang student publication naman is the issue of any printed material noong time na yon. That is independently published by and which meets the needs and interests of the students. Well, we have to emphasize as well that it can also mean today non-print materials. So, pwedeng mga digital na, okay, yung mga products natin. Pwedeng mga publication materials na sila that are being published online. So, electronic na talaga sila. Ayun. The third one is a student journalist is a bona fide student enrolled for the current semester or term who has passed or met the qualification and standards of the editorial board. He must likewise maintain a satisfactory academic standing. Kailangan enrolled po siya sa current semester, especially dun sa semester talaga na mare-release yung kanya, yung mismong sabi nating release, like broadsheet. Kung halimbawa ang plano is mag-release ng broadsheet for this semester, ang lahat na nagsulat sa broadsheet na yun, kailangan enroll dun sa school nung semester na yun. I just remember several instances na parang yung aking yung dati kong kinabibilangan na publication, student publication, the Sinukuan Gazette, nagkaroon kami ng parang mga contributors from different alumni. Ayan, so we can say na medyo yun, parang it's a slight, I think it's a violation of this rule that graduates na sila, mga graduates na sila from the university, yet meron pa rin mga lumilitaw na mga articles nila dun sa semester na hindi naman nila in-enrollan. Ayan, so and later on siguro you'll know why kailangan enrolled siya. Okay. Ayan, for the next one naman, the editorial board. In the tertiary level, the editorial board shall be composed of student journalists who have qualified in placement examinations. In the case of elementary and high school levels, the editorial board shall be composed of a duly appointed faculty advisor, the editor who qualified, and a representative of the Parent-Teacher Association, who will determine the editorial policies to be implemented by the editor and staff members of the publication concerned. Okay, in the tertiary level, sinabi lang naman dito, the editorial board is purely composed of student journalists who qualified for a particular placement examination. But in the case of elementary and secondary levels, kailangan merong involved na faculty advisor, kailangan meron din PTA, representative. Ayan. The work of the editorial board is going to be clarified here, I think. Ayan. No. Okay, so at the tertiary level, the editorial board may include a publication advisor. Ito pala yung gusto kong i-clarify. Yung kanina, editorial board ng tertiary is puro student. Pero kung gusto nila magka-advisor, pwede naman. Okay. Nasa mga members na kung gusto nila. Okay, so next one is editorial policies. Ito yung mga guidelines ng student publication, kung paano siya mag-ooperate at kung paano rin siya mamamanage. Kailangan tinatake into account yung mga pertinent laws na kailangan tandaan ng mga ng editorial board at kailangan din mai-implement din yung mga schools administration policies. Kailangan hindi tayo sumesegue or lumalayo doon. Kailangan set guidelines shall determine the frequency of publication, the manner of selecting articles and features, and other similar matters. Kung gaano kadalas yung pagre-release. When I was in college, we were releasing broadsheets, we were releasing a newsletter, and also a magazine, and then a literary folio in only one school year. Ayan, so that is because of the kind of editorial policy that we had noong time na yun. Okay. For the next rule number 4, the student publication, section 1, all educational institutions on the elementary, secondary, and tertiary levels, public or private, shall be encouraged to establish a student publication. Well, there is a very big difference between being required and being encouraged. So, if the school can't really afford to have a student publication, if they are too far off from the city, if they are also very small, like as in sobrang konti ng enrollees nila, they may not be able to support the existence of a student publication. So they're just encouraged, not really required. Because if they're required, they couldn't like establish a student publication, a working student publication, then there's gonna be like, penalties for that. Okay, pero kung encouraged lang naman, yan. So it's quite softer. Next. For the second rule, the student publication, there shall be 3 categories of student publications: elementary, secondary, tsaka tertiary student publication. Kapag meron ng isang publication na na-establish, ang editorial board, it can freely determine its editorial policies and manage the publication funds. Okay, so paano yun? Kapag halimbawa, na-establish na ng isang high school, nagagawa sila ng sarili nilang publication separate from the entire university. Diba? May mga university na merong mga high school din naman. May mga separated grade levels for the high school students. At napagdesisyon na nila, nagagawa sila ng separate na campus paper for high school. Upon the establishment of that, they can now start determining their policies, and after determining the policies, that's when they start managing the publication funds. The members of the editorial board of the tertiary student publication shall be responsible to the school, college, or university and to third parties for its decisions, actions, policies, and legal consequences arising from such. In the tertiary level, is the student publication liable to every single mistake and every single feed that they will be doing? Okay? Section 4 naman, the aims and purposes of student publications. Student publications shall be utilized to train interested students in the following. Now, I will be asking you to pause this video because every single thing that was listed here, in my opinion, they're quite repetitive. And I think we also made a lot of these things clear by reading the Code of Ethics of the PSSPA a while ago and the Journalists' Creed. Yet, we included them in this discussion so that you're aware that there's an actual enumeration of the aims and purposes of the student publication in the implementing rules and regulation for the RA 7079 and in the DECS Order 94 series of 1992. So you may pause this video if you want to read them all. These are for A, B, C, and D. And then for E, F, G, and H. And then I and J. So all in all, there are 10 aims and purposes of student publications. Okay, let's move forward. For rule number 5, this is quite controversial. Okay, financing student publication. I think you would also want to know how your student publication must be funded. For public elementary and secondary schools, publication fees, subsidy sourced from savings realized from the school's appropriations, revenues realized from donations and grants, and advertisements shall be sources of funding for the student publication. Let me repeat, publication fee. That's the first source of publication fund. The second one is subsidy from the savings of the school. Yeah, yung merong budget ang school, kung merong savings, i-charge dapat yung ilan doon or ang ilang parts noon sa ating student publication. And then, revenues from donations and grants. Kung halimbawa, merong mga nag-donate ng mga organizations sa student publication, yun, pwedeng maging source din yan. And then the last one is mga ads. Siyempre, dapat yung ads is talagang target nila is mga estudyante and it's safe to put them out in the campus paper. Pwede yun. Now, for private schools, publication fees, revenues realized from donations and grants and advertisements shall be the sources of funding for student publications. Publication fees from students shall be collected during the enrollment period for both public and private schools. Pansinin ninyo na yung pinagkaiba lang naman ng public at saka ng private dito ay yung savings. Kasi, syempre, hindi naman pwedeng assume na mayroong savings yung mga private schools. Well, the public schools have budget, so more or less, they must have savings. Ayan. And by saying sa budget anyway, I mean, mga budget na na galing sa government allocations, mga appropriations na galing sa gobyerno. Yan. So continuing section 1, in both public and private schools, all student publication funds shall be automatically released to the student publication staff 1 month after the last day of enrollment. Kanina, we made it clear that in this IRR, kailangan mangyayari yung collection sa mismong enrollment period. Ngayon, kapag halimbawa tapos na yung enrollment period, a month after that, maibigay na dapat yung mismong publication funds na nakolekta sa publication staff. Ayan. For section 2, the preparation of student publication budget. The editorial board, with the assistance of the student publication staff, shall prepare the student publication budget for each year or semester. The budget shall be posted on the school bulletin board and published in the school student publication. We have to clarify na by this time na i-transfer na dapat yung publication fund. Okay, kapag alam na kung magkano yung iba-budget, gagawin na dapat ng editorial board yung budget. Let me remind you that the editorial board is composed of the editor, faculty advisor, as well as PTA representative for secondary schools. Okay? Kasi ako, I'm under the secondary schools. I'm an SPA for a secondary school. So, yun yung composition ng ating editorial board. Pero kapag tertiary naman, pwedeng may advisor, pwedeng yung mga estudyante lang talaga ang magbabudget ng kanilang budget. So, the budget shall include expenses for the printing costs of the student publication, transportation and needs of the staff and the teacher advisor during their work at the printing press, office and photo supplies, attendance of the student publication representatives at the annual divisional, regional, and national press conference or workshops, honoraria, allowance for staffers and teacher advisors, and other incidental expenses. This segment, this part of the IRR is clarifying ano yung pwede nating mga bilhin for using these student publication funds. So, yun lang naman. Importante rin kasi na mayroong mga sinabi ang isang document na tulad nito kung ano yung pwede nating pagkagastusan so that the editorial board knows that the budget is really only allocated for things that concern the student publication. Kung halimbawa, nangihingi ng budget yung sabihin nating Araling Panlipunan Club sa student publication, hindi natin pwedeng ibigay yon. Okay, kahit na para rin naman sa school, para rin naman sa mga sa student body yon, if it's not really going to be if it's not a concern of the student publication itself, it's not going to work. We don't release budget for that. Okay? Okay. For the next one, the preparation of the student publication budget continued. Disbursements of student publication funds shall be made according to accounting and auditing regulations. It's just a clarification that kailangan na-audit at matatrace natin kung saan napunta yung budget natin. For rule number 5, financing student publication, let's start with the subscription fee, section 3. The editorial board, in coordination with the school administration, may provide a mechanism for the collection of subscription fees from the students. The publication fee shall be determined by the editorial board in consultation with the student body. In the private elementary and secondary schools, the editorial board shall determine the subscription fee for each individual student in consultation with the student body. In the public elementary and secondary schools, the publication fee for each individual student in no case be more than what is provided in DECS Order number 40, series of 1988. Okay, so ano yung subscription fee? A subscription fee is being paid by a person para makareceive siya ng mga lahat ng mga releases ng isang publication. So, halimbawa, kung nakasubscribe ka sa Philippine Star, and your subscription is including every single thing Philippine Star is publishing. So, bibigyan ka nila ng magazines na gawa ng Philippine Star, kasama na rin doon yung broadsheet, kung meron din silang mga newsletters, mga tabloids, ayan. At iba pang mga releases. Okay, so you'll be given access to that. It's the same thing for the campus paper. Kung merong mga estudyante na gustong magkaroon ng subscription sa lahat ng i-release ng student publication, may mga estudyanteng ganon, na gusto nila lahat ng releases ninyo, meron sila. Well, may subscription fee. And kung magkano yon kailangan it's done, it's gonna be identified in coordination with the student body. Ayan. Okay, so for clause number 2 and clause number 4 naman of this, for grade 4 and anyway, yeah, I forgot to emphasize this. Nung sinabi na subscription fee dito, I was curious na, ano yun? Ano yung sinasabi nila about subscription fee? And then I looked at it, and then what I found out was there was this particular price lang. May mga 20 pesos lang, ganun. May mga 60 plus, biglang naging 60, may naging 90, ayan. Kaso, I think it's it's better to talk about this na lang. It's the most updated na document that I found regarding the publication fee and also the subscription fee, if ever meron mas subscription fee. But let me clarify that this is a different document. It's not the same. It's not DECS Order number 94, series of 1992. This is DepEd Order number 19, series of 2008. And it's not by Armand V. Fabella. That is just a typographical error. Okay? It's titled Implementation of No Collection Policy in All Public Elementary and Secondary Schools. Yung clause number 2 niya, sinasabi niya dito is for grades 4 and beyond, wala dapat na nangyayaring collection. Walang collection of any type. Okay? Walang collection. As in, should be undertaken during the enrollment period and the first month of classes. Starting on the second month, contributions may be collected on a voluntary basis. What it's trying to say is for us, mga nasa high school na, hindi tayo pwedeng mag-collect ng publication fee. Yung sinasabi niyang publication fee kanina nung enrollment, hindi po pwedeng gawin yon. Hindi siya pwedeng gawing mandatory, wala rin po siya dapat maging price. Okay? Wala siyang presyo na ini-impose natin na bawat estudyante magbabayad ng 100. Hindi po pwedeng ganun. Okay, at kung magkakaroon man ng collection ng mga ganitong klaseng contributions, okay, again, they're contributions, school publication, ang isa sa kanila. Meron pang ibang mga contributions sa Boy Scout at Girl Scout, pero we have to focus on the school publication. Kung meron man na i-collect at kung meron man nagbibigay ng contribution for the school paper, they must be collected on the second month. Kailangan sa second month pa lang ng klase. So kung nag-open ng klase natin ng August, sabihin natin August 22, September 22 pa lang tayo pwedeng mag-collect ng publication fee. Tapos dapat voluntary siya. Ngayon ganito. What if merong gustong magbigay ng publication fee tapos ang binibigay niya 500 pesos? Pwede ba nating tanggapin yon? Clause number 4 says, and I think it's indirectly said, no. The publication fee shall be set at the school level but shall not be more than 60 pesos per elementary school pupil and 90 pesos per secondary school student. Kailangan 90 pesos lang po. Okay, kada estudyante yung i-collect natin. Kung meron man na magko-contribute. Kung wala, hindi po tayo pwedeng mag-impose. The publication though of a newspaper, while it's not mandatory, is strongly encouraged, particularly at the secondary level in line with the campus journalism program. Ngayon, ang ibig lang sabihin siguro nito is yung publication fee na isa lamang sa mga pwedeng maging sources of funding. Tandaan natin, meron pang mga savings ang school, meron pang mga donations and grants. Ayan. Meron ding pwedeng advertisements. Ayan. Yun yung mga pwede natin gamitin para makapag-publish pa rin ang isang campus paper ng isang newspaper. Ayan. It's not mandatory, pero it's strongly encouraged. Again, let me repeat ha, iba yung required, iba rin yung is strongly encouraged. Kapag halimbawa, in-require tayo, di tayo nakagawa, meron tayong penalties doon. Pero kapag strongly encouraged lang tayo, it's not like we're gonna be penalized. So, okay lang. Okay lang. Now, we go back to DECS Order, number 94, series of 1992. For the subscription fee, publication funds shall be deposited in the account of the student publication in an authorized depository bank through at least 2 authorized signatories of the editorial board. Kung halimbawa, meron ng funds ang isang editorial board, kailangan gumawa ng bank account. Tapos dapat deposit account yun. Okay? 2 signatories na manggagaling sa editorial board. So kung halimbawa high school yan, pwedeng PTA, tsaka yung editor, or pwedeng yung editor at saka yung mismong faculty advisor. Ayan. Okay. For the printing of the student publication, the printing of the student publication by a private printer shall be conducted by the editorial board and the student publication staff through canvas or public bidding. Okay, so the printing, yung pag-identify ng printing press, okay, yung pagpiprinta ng magazine, yan, for mass production na siya, kailangan magawa yun through canvassing or through public bidding. Hindi pwedeng isa lang yung go-to talaga ng inyong editorial board. Kailangan bidding yan. May proof na nagkaroon mo ng bidding bago in-award. Okay? Okay, so for the next one, financial report of expenses. A financial report of expenses shall be prepared by the editorial board and the student publication staff at the close of the school year for the elementary and secondary levels, and every semester for the tertiary level properly audited by a COA or authorized auditor for the public schools. For the private schools, a certified public accountant shall properly audit the expenditures based on the approved budget of the editorial board. Therefore, the audited summary financial statement shall be published in the student publication at the end of the school term. Kailangan included doon sa ating mga releases, sa ating mga pinapublish na newspaper, yung mismong breakdown, yung financial statement ng ating editorial board. Okay? Okay. Now, for Section 6, the use of student publication funds. Publication fees, savings, donations, grants, and other funds collected from other sources for the student publication shall be for its exclusive use. The money collected shall not be spent for purposes other than those cited in Section 2 of this rule. Violation of this rule by the editorial board, any student staff, faculty advisor, and or school administrator or official shall be cause for administrative and or criminal action against the violator. I already told you about this and we had an example a while ago. Okay, so hindi pwedeng gamitin ang publication funds for purposes na hindi na itala dun sa mga nakasite kanina. So, halimbawa, si teacher advisor ng school publication ay mag-a-attend ng seminar, kaso yung seminar is about science naman siya. Hindi pwedeng gamitin yung publication funds para sa niya, even though siya yung SPA, hindi niya pwedeng gamitin yun kasi it's not related to campus journalism. Okay? Okay. So, next one, rule number 6 is sino ba yung publication advisor? Ayan. So, for section 1, the faculty advisor of the tertiary student publication, sinabi na natin siya kanina, must be selected by the school administration from a list of recommendations na ibinigay ng ating mga staffers. Okay? So, that's true for the tertiary level. Kung gusto nila ng advisor, pili sila. Okay, tapos kung meron silang mga pagpipilian, hindi lang isa, kailangan nila i-present yon sa mismong admin ng college or university, tapos sila na yung mamimili para sa kanila. Now, for the elementary and secondary levels, the teacher advisor exercising special parental authority over the student staffers who are minors shall jointly with the parent-teacher association be held fully responsible for the contents of this student publication. For elementary and for secondary schools, wala pong nakalista dito na kailangan English majors sila or Filipino majors sila. And I would like to emphasize this because in my experience as a teacher already for 7 years, I was the school paper advisor of Bloomingfields Academy Foundation, Incorporated, the home of the Bloomers in Buen Suceso, Arayat, Pampanga for 2 years. And I am a science teacher. I am a science, my major is science, although I am a licensed professional teacher. In my license, hindi po nakalagay yung major ko. Nakalagay lang doon professional teacher. Ayan. And for 2 years, my first 2 years of teaching, I was the SPA for BAFI. And then when I transferred to when I applied and I got accepted to teach in Brightwoods School of the Brightwoods Educational Ventures Incorporated or BEVI, which is located in Pandan, Angeles City. I was also the school paper advisor of their paper, The Brighton, along with one of my co-teachers noon. Kasi when I was in BAFI, I was not really having any partner SPA. Pero when I moved to Brightwoods, I had a partner SPA. And, for these two schools, my major was not an issue. Okay? Until I transferred to my current place of employment where for 2 years I was not selected as the school paper advisor. Well, it was for the reason daw that I was not it's for a lot of reasons. One of them being meron daw nakalagay na incumbent na SPA, so that's acceptable. Pero when I heard I think this was just told by one of my co-teachers then, because they were also wondering why I was not an SPA despite my involvement in the school-based press conference. They were wondering. And then one of them told me that it was because I am a science major. Okay, so that of course startled me. Like, I was very shocked. Like, where did you read about that? Wala pong ganon. Okay, so it is being said, just syempre, we have also to take note that the advisor of the paper here is member of of the faculty. So kung hindi siya member ng faculty ng mismong school na yun, syempre, hindi siya pwedeng maging SPA. Okay. Now, the SPA, the school paper advisor, and the PTA representative, they are holding full responsibility over the minors na mga staffers nila sa elementary and the secondary level. Okay, so again, let me repeat that my points here are: the publication advisor must be a teacher in that particular school regardless of what subject ang tinuturo niya. And then, that faculty advisor is working hand in hand with the PTA representative, and they both are exercising parental authority, special parental authority over the staffers who are minors, since we're talking about elementary and secondary school students. This being a publication advisor is already one teaching or workload. Isang workload na siya. I think in public schools, kailangan lang yata, 6 na teaching hours, 6 na loads lang ang mayroon ang isang teacher. I think it's like 5 subjects, and then yung isa nun, it's a combination of all of their other teaching loads. Parang ang sinasabi ngayon, I think there is this particular source, and we're just going to investigate this. Again, let's investigate this together. No, what's supposed to happen is, if a teacher is already teaching 5, meron siyang 5 teaching loads, tapos naging SPA siya, dapat enough na siya nun. Yun na yung teaching loads. So, hindi siya pwedeng dapat gawin pang advisor, because I think that's already another teaching load, advising. And if they're going to be, I think, let's just stick to that. Hindi siya pwede dapat gawing advisor, kasi magiging 7 na yung loads niya nun. Kaso, in my recent experience, being an advisor and being an SPA is just considered one load, and we have to still dig into that. We have to know more about that. Okay, pero as of now, we know that being an SPA is one teaching load. Okay. For the selection of staff members, the selection of the chief editor, the editor-in-chief, and other members of the staff of tertiary student publications shall be through competitive examinations prepared, conducted, and supervised by a committee composed of a representative of the school administration, 1 faculty member, 1 mass media practitioner who is acceptable to both school administrator and editorial board, and 2 past editors to be chosen by the outgoing editorial board. So, yung feeling kong pinaka magiging working committee dito ay yung 2 past staffers. And since outgoing na sila yung parang talagang mag-i-spearhead ng activity na mag-identify kung sino yung mga mag-succeed sa kanila. Now, let's continue. For the next one, secondary and elementary student publication staffers should pass a qualifying examination conducted by a committee composed of the Student Publication Advisor, or SPA, which can be Filipino and English, who shall act as a chairperson. So parang if there are 2 SPAs, Filipino tapos English, silang dalawa yung chair people. Ayan. And then the past student editor or editor-in-chief as vice chairman, and then isang faculty member at 2 former student editors. Okay, so for elementary and for secondary schools, yan yung magko-comprise ng committee for the selection of the new staffers. For the security of tenure, which is rule number 8, the student staffers, a member of the student publication staff must maintain his or her or their satisfactory academic standing in order to retain membership in the staff. A student shall not be expelled or suspended solely on the basis of articles he, she, or they have written or on the basis of the performance of his or her duties in the publication staff. So, maybe ito na talaga yung talagang explanation kung bakit hindi pwede na and kung bakit dapat bona fide students yung mga members ng publication. Okay? Yung editorial board, yung mga writers, kailangan, yung mga photojournalists, kailangan, yung mga artists, kailangan, bona fide students sila for that particular semester, that particular year. So, kung halimbawa, graduate na siya, hindi siya pwedeng mag-publish ng kanyang articles dun sa campus paper kasi ang liable doon, syempre, is yung school. Eh, di na siya, graduate siya, yes. Tapos na yung kanyang involvement dun sa school. So, kailangan, it has to be left like that. Also, I think it's good that we keep that a practice kasi the space in the broadsheet, it's only limited. And if we're not going to look at the new potential minds to build as writers, as photojournalists, as artists, and we just tend to call the usual people na graduate na nga pero talagang kukuhanan pa rin natin. I think it's not a good practice. Okay? We have to always scout for new talents. We always have to look for possible great artists, possible great writers. Okay? And not just call the great writers we know. Okay? Okay. For the next one, rule number 9, press conferences and trainings and seminars. Ang DECS, it is sponsoring competitions, press conferences, seminars, and workshops in which student writers and their teacher advisors are going to participate. So this was true for elementary, secondary, and tertiary levels. Meron siyang institutional or pang school-based lang. Meron siyang divisional. Actually, minsan meron pa siyang cluster before divisional. Tapos regional. And then, meron siyang culmination with the annual national, elementary, secondary, or tertiary schools press conferences na ginaganap sa mga lugar na mayroong historical or cultural interest in the country. Okay, so in our case, in my experience, when I was working in Bloomingfields Academy Foundation Incorporated, we had a cluster schools press conference in Cluster 9. It is a press conference among private schools lang in that particular cluster. And then, kapag nanalo yung student namin dun sa CSPC, dun pa lang siya mag-advance sa DSSPC. And then, kapag nanalo pa siya dun, pupunta na tayo ng regional. And then, after niya dun, it's gonna be in the national schools press conference na, and it's gonna be done in a place of historical or cultural interest. Ayan. Kaso, that depends, of course, in the location or in the division kung nasaan yung inyong mga schools. Kasi, limbawa, although in Bafi, since it was a private school, and very young pa, okay, napaka-young pa ng student publication doon, hindi na kami nakagawa ng school-based na press conference. However, when I moved to my current place of employment in the public school, we did a school-based press conference which immediately went to the division school's press conference. Okay, that's in Angeles City. So, ganun na siya. Wala na siyang cluster schools press conference. Okay, so let's now proceed. For the expenses of the student publication staff and their teacher advisor at the press conference and training seminars, ito, sinabi natin kanina, subsidized po siya ng publication funds. Siyempre, dapat well-audited yan. Okay? Dapat meron tayong mga resibo, meron tayong mga proof kung saan natin pinaggagastusan yung pera, okay? Kung magkano. And then for tax exemption, pursuant to paragraph 4, section 4 of Article 14 of the Constitution, which is education, culture, and sports. All grants, endowments, donations, or contributions used actually, directly, and exclusively for the promotion of campus journalism as provided for in RA number 7079 shall be exempt from donors or gift tax. Article 14 is education, culture, and sports of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. And if the money was used to promote campus journalism daw, and meron tayong mga proof of purchases dyan, may mga resibo, pwede natin yan ipa-exempt sa tax. For rule number 11, appropriations. Yung initial year of implementation niya, ang budget ng DECS noon ay 5 million pesos. Ang budget na to, pwede pa siyang magbago if it's necessary and must be included in the General Appropriations Act. The GAA or the General Appropriations Act ay yung national budget natin. Ayan. And you have to be aware as campus journalists that the Department of Education has the highest budget allocation from among all of the departments in our government. Okay, so siya yung may pinaka-mataas na budget allocation. Napakarami niyang perang kailangang gamitin, kailangang ibigay para sa mga estudyante. Okay? Of course, in many different forms. The general provisions, which is rule number 12. Yeah, rule number 12. Let's see. Let's go back. The Department of Education, Culture, and Sports shall help ensure and facilitate the proper carrying out of the implementing rules and regulations of the Republic Act number 7079. It shall also act on cases on appeal brought before it. The DECS Regional Office shall have the original jurisdiction over cases as a result of the decisions, actions, and policies of the editorial board of a school within its area of administrative responsibility. It shall conduct investigations and hearings on these cases and submit reports of its decision of each case within 15 days after the resolution of each case. Ang DECS ay meron siyang national or central office. Parang DepEd na lang din siya. So, ang DepEd, meron siyang central office. Meron din siyang mga regional offices. So, halimbawa, ang isang publication, meron siyang pinublish na pangre-ridicule, meron siyang pinublish na may containment, meron siyang nilalaman na obscenity, tapos niraise siya sa school, tapos hindi siya na-resolve, niraise siya sa division. Ang magre-resolve ba nun, according to this IRR, it's the regional office. And usually what happens is from the regional office, binababa siya ulit sa school level until it gets resolved. So, halimbawa, may nagreklamo, tinaas siya sa national, ibababa yun sa regional, tapos ibababa siya sa division, tapos ibababa siya ng division sa district, tapos yung district nun, i-call na niya yung attention ng mismong school head, nung mismong school na concern. Ganun siya. Okay. The Secretary of Education, Culture, and Sports may amend these rules when there are compelling reasons for amendments, provided that any amendment shall be made in consultation with the representatives of duly recognized student journalism associations and advisors associations, as well as representatives of the administration, and provided further that all amendments shall be in accordance with RA number 7079. Our current Education Secretary is Secretary Sara Z. Duterte. Ayan. So, she has the power to amend any part of this IRR, but it has to be done with consultation with the ones that we mentioned a while ago. Okay? The effectivity is rule number 13. It has to take effect immediately after publication and circulation in a DECS order to all public and private schools in the country. And it was signed by Armand V. Fabella. This has been the probe, and I am so glad that you reached this point when we are already talking about the laws and ethics of journalists. I did not include libel in this video lesson, even though it is included in Elena Q. Tanodra's book. Because, in my opinion, you campus journalists are not liable to any of those statements that were put to describe what libel is and how it gets penalized in the country. Ang mga liable lang naman doon ay yung mga people who are already of age. And again, the worst case scenario for us in the campus, and I'm hoping that this is indeed going to be the worst case scenario for campus journalists, it's for your advisors to be called, yung attentionalized mako-call. Yun lang ang pinaka-worst case scenario na tingin ko ay mangyayari sa atin. And anyway, as a school paper advisor, I know that once the paper published something that is not of good taste, is indeed libelous, as the school paper advisor, I have the responsibility to fix the problem and to call back the print and to make sure that it gets corrected and that the proper people must be ensured that it's not going to happen again. So I'm happy that from the very first video lesson up to now, you're still here. The intention of these video lessons is to provide instruction specifically to the members of the Harbinger, the official student publication of Clara M. Recto Information and Communication Technology High School, so that their training is going to be facilitated really well. I am their school paper advisor for English. I am working with a school paper advisor for Filipino who is very, very talented in this kind of field. I'm happy that it's now done. I actually finished the entire book, and I'm so excited for the next members of the editorial board and staff of the Harbinger, because I know that this coming school year, there is a very big possibility that we are going back to the press conferences na usual na alam natin na very competitive and very fun, which are opportunities for us to know more people, to communicate, to connect with more people, and to know and to love campus journalism with people who actually love it too. And so this has been Sir CJ, and I hope that the probe has helped you too as a campus journalist in improving your writing, or I was able to impart some good to know things regarding campus journalism through these video lessons. I will see you in our next series on say guidance and counseling, or maybe in general psychology, we don't know. Okay, I'm just so excited for the way things are unfolding. Have a good day.